We use the arts, theater, writing programs, poetry, dance.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. Today, Blind Abilities correspondent Simon Bonenfant chats with Cheryl Cummings and Ruth Kahn, representing an after-school and career exploration program, Our Space, Our Place, for middle and high school students who are blind or low vision.
At the same time, we're looking at ways of developing friendships for students to meet other folks who are blind.
Meet Cheryl Cummings, blind at age 13, but making her way through high school and being accepted at an Ivy League college.
I met some other students who challenged me to study overseas. I signed up and actually did that.
With so much going for her, she entered the job market.
No one would hire me.
And after all is said and done, out of rejection comes inspiration.
I started to realize that the experiences I was having weren't just my experiences. They were experiences that all types of blind people have.
Following the inspiration comes hard work and rewards.
What can we do to make this not happen for other blind people?
And now they're promoting an upcoming event. Meet Ruth Kahn.
We develop a script of the physical action based on the amount of time we have between the lines,
providing audio description for a live play.
Our Place, Our Space will be running its ballet workshop based on the Urban Nutcracker from April 20th to April 23rd in the afternoon.
Be sure to mark your calendars. This event will be available on Zoom for all blind and visually impaired individuals anywhere in the world. And now let's get familiar with the Our Space, Our Place program with Simon Bonenfant and his guests, Cheryl Cummings and Ruth Kahn.
Oh my gosh, it's like an amazing outcome.
Hello everyone on Blind Abilities, this is Simon Bonenfant here, and today in a virtual studio I have two very special guests. We have Cheryl Cummings and Ruth Kahn. So how you folks doing today?
Good.
Great. Thank you very much. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's very nice to have you on. Cheryl is the founder and the director of Our Space, Our Place program, which is run out of Boston, Massachusetts. Can you kind of tell the listeners a quick overview of what that is, Cheryl?
Oh, yes. I mean, the easiest way to describe it is that it is an after-school and career exploration program for middle and high school students who are blind and low vision. We use the arts, we use theater, writing programs, poetry, dance, karate, running programs, everything that's sort of non-academic, but at the same time we're looking at ways of developing friendships. We provide opportunities for our students to meet other folks who are blind, to learn about other people and sort of how they're living their lives. We give kids a chance to challenge themselves. So a lot of our kids, maybe they've never run a 5K race. We train, we do that, and it's always been amazing how the kids are blown away by their ability to do that, and their parents are even more excited that their kid participated in a 5K race. We do just a big variety of activities that I think kids who are not blind or low vision tend to just sort of take it for granted that they can do it.
Wow, it sounds like a lot of different variety. So why don't we take it back a little bit, Cheryl? Let the listeners know about your life. I know that you are blind. How did you go into this role?
Yeah, so I became blind when I was around 13. I just started high school. It was a whole new life that I was put into. I feel fortunate because I had a wonderful itinerant teacher, Mrs. King, who started working with me and who really took the time to help me to learn Braille. I went through high school. I managed to keep my grades up. I applied to some colleges. My family is in Chicago, so I was living in Chicago. I was really fortunate in the sense that I was able to get into Princeton University on the East Coast. And in as much as the thought was, it's a good school to go to, I also knew that I needed to sort of be away from my family because they absolutely loved me. And of course they still do, but they were really super protective. And I figured out that sort of the only way I could learn how to use my cane, learn how to take care of myself, was that I needed not to be around my family. How am I going to grow up? How am I going to learn how to take care of myself if, my mom is doing everything for me?
At what point did you know that you wanted to have a drive? And similar to that, I guess, what kind of career path did you think you were going to go to at that time? What kind of vision did you have for your future?
I became blind and I was able to make it through high school. And then, as I said, I got into Princeton. I had always wanted to be a public servant. Not very fancy, but I wanted to work for the government. I wanted to work in Washington, D.C. I knew I had to get better. I had to really learn how to use my cane because I didn't do it that much in high school. And I had to learn how to take care of myself, which meant doing my laundry, going to the store, going to the bank, all those types of things. My college experience, I thought, was very good. I met a lot of new people, made a lot of mistakes with laundry. Occasionally didn't know what we were doing around cooking. Those were little disasters. I met some other students who challenged me to study overseas. I signed up and actually did that. Graduated. I did go to graduate school. So I was in New Jersey and then I came to Boston for graduate school because by then I'd realized that what I was really interested in was international relations. So it was important that I was comfortable getting around. When I left graduate school, I went to DC to try to find a job and no one would hire me because I wanted to work internationally and everybody was convinced that as a blind person, I couldn't really live safely overseas and that if they hired me, I would be more of a detriment than able to contribute to their work. I was in DC looking for a job and I couldn't get a job sort of in the field I wanted to. So I signed up to be a Peace Corps volunteer. It was an organization that really talked a lot about inclusion and equal employment opportunities and stuff like that. They weren't any more eager to hire me than anybody else was. But I was living in DC and I think they probably gave me a posting because I was a nuisance. I would show up every week or every 2 weeks or so and I'd inquire, hey, where's my placement? Have you found me a place yet? And finally, I got a placement. So I was a Peace Corps volunteer and I worked and lived in the Dominican Republic for 2 years. And then I came back to the US and the same thing, nobody would hire me. I did end up meeting my husband, Tim, and he's from Boston. So here I was in Boston looking for a job. Got a job finally at the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. And this is the job I think that really led me to wanting to create the after-school program. I started to realize that sort of the experiences I was having weren't just my experiences as an individual person, that to some extent there were experiences that all types of blind people have. And so the question was, okay, what can we do to make this not happen for other blind people? And especially what can we do to make this not happen for blind kids who maybe their families aren't super well off, they're immigrants, they're minority families. And so in sort of thinking about that and what could I bring to that field, that's where the concept of having an after school and career exploration program came up.
Can you give us a little bit of a timeline here? You had the idea to start it, what steps needed to be taken to start it up, and when did it successfully launch?
I probably had the idea in 2004 and started talking to lots of people. We had a family friend who was an attorney and an accountant, and so he helped me filing the paper to get our 501c3 status. And so he helped me to do that. The next thing we then had to do was to try to find a space, where are we going to hold this? There were lots of organizations that talked about being open to helping new organizations, but they didn't really mean it. If you had lots of money and, it's Boston, so rental space is extremely expensive. I was stunned because there were places who I thought they'd be supportive and they just weren't. So we ended up at a community center, and for the first few years, they charged us next to nothing. To basically have a room in their community center. I had to hire a driver once we started, talking about the program. One of the things was our parents are working, so they can't bring the kids to the program. And we couldn't get the school bus system to drop off the kids because we didn't, and we still don't meet every single day because we've just never had the financial capacity to do that. We meet 2 days a week and then on Saturdays. I mean, I just started. I had like little to no money. Well, I was still working, so that's what helped us a lot. I basically had a full-time job, and my job had the ability to have like a flexible schedule, so that's what I did. In working with places like the Museum of Fine Arts and the Museum of Science, those are community-based organizations that have a commitment to be inclusive. So we would talk, well, if you work with us, you've like taken one step on the road of being inclusive.
So what has been the students' reactions from this? You talked about that you have a lot of speakers and role models, really, that the blind people can tap into through this program. What has been something that the students have told you about that they enjoy and that have helped them?
Yeah, I think some of the things the kids have told me about and still tell me about is one, as you know, blindness is called a low incidence disability. So as they come together, they get a chance to meet other kids who are also blind. They have a place where not seeing is not an issue. It's never like, oh, you can't participate in that because you can't see. Everything that's available and everything that's done is always available for any kid to participate in. And they can do it, and they can certainly say, I don't like that, and that's different than I wasn't able to give it a try. I think the basic thing is, like, kids get a chance to meet other kids, and they can talk openly without, people pitying them. They can talk about, I don't want to learn Braille, or I hate using my cane, or, I don't know how to do whatever. And other kids can respond back. I've seen instances where kids who don't want to use their cane, I don't have to say anything because the other kids say, like, hey, why did you want to use your cane? I use my cane, and this is what it does. Also, as a result of our career exploration activities, kids, again, we're not a big organization, and I don't have any staff, really. But if there's a student who is really interested in gaining some work experience, we've been able to help kids do that. And oh my gosh, it's like an amazing outcome. They just love the fact that they can actually say, I'm going to work. One young man who participated in our program, we were able to get him a summer experience working with the accessible office at the Museum of Fine Arts. Oh my gosh. I mean, he would tell me all the time, I have an employee's badge. I go through this entrance, not the same one you people go through as the public. When we were finished, his parents just talked about how impactful it was for him and even for them, because they weren't necessarily sure what he was going to be able to do. He's now in college. And another young woman who's part of our program, I'm not so sure that the mom had any ideas about sort of the future. Her mom was involved and would come and volunteer with us. She met other kids, and then the mom herself started to take her own sort of initiative to go to training for parents. I mean, what an amazing change. She decided her daughter was going to learn how to really take care of herself, have like her own apartment, to go to college programming if she wanted to, and that she was going to get a job. And all those things have happened.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
So going back to something that you mentioned, which is very key and important, is the students building each other up and the students working together. I'm sure that it's safe to say that there's been a lot of friendships that have been made from the program. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's wonderful to see those. I'm always impressed with the kids. Yeah. Developing those connections among themselves. The purpose of the program is for the kids to meet each other. That's a good thing. As a director, I'm there to help make those things happen. And certainly, I love getting to know the kids, and it's wonderful that they hang out and we hang out together and stuff like that. But I'm not the person they need to be bonding with. They need to be building relationships really with the other kids, because that's who their connection ongoing will be. And it's nice. I mean, you see them like talking about TikTok and video games and Facebook and all that sort of fun stuff together.
Great. You have transitioned to Zoom and an online platform when the pandemic started. So you have a program coming up in April that you wanted to highlight. Can you talk about that?
I'm going to talk a little bit, but I really would love Ruth to say more. She's our audio description genius, as you might say. Dance is something that I think is extremely important. It helps you to be comfortable sort of with your body and understanding how your body moves through space. And so we created a program that we want to do two things. We wanted to not only learn about dance and a particular type of dance, so this is ballet, but we also wanted to learn about how do you make dance accessible to blind and low vision people. In this program, we are working with Ruth, who is an audio describer, and we're also working with Erica, who is a dancer and a dance instructor. And together, our goal is, if you participate in the program, not only would you learn a dance from the Nutcracker, but you're also going to understand what is audio description. And then you yourselves, with guidance from Ruth, will create the audio description of the dance. It's sort of helping people to have sort of the language and tools that you can then take back to your community and say to others, hey, maybe in your community every year they do a Nutcracker or they do some other type of dance and you've always wanted to experience it. Well, now you can tell them this is what we need to do and this is how you can do it. I think it just can open up a whole sort of wide world to people.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, because when you think of the nature of audio description, it's not often that blind people actually get to design and develop these audio description. This is something that the sighted is doing, but it sounds to me like you're taking something to do with dance and putting it into the blind people learning it and then working with them to design their own audio description and being creative in their description. So that's something that's kind of an untapped thing in the blindness community. That's a really nice niche. So Ruth, let's kind of turn the conversation over to you. As Cheryl said, you are an audio describer. You are sighted. Why don't you talk to the listeners about how you came into the disability community and your background a bit?
Sure. Very glad to. I've been involved with the disability community for a very, very long time. I was too young to participate in the civil rights movement during the 1960s, but in the late 70s and early 80s, I was just in time for the disability rights movement. And that's where I met my husband, who had a rare neuromuscular disease and used a wheelchair. And he was an artist, a visual artist and a poet and an essayist and later a playwright. Our relationship was based on collaboration. We worked on a film about Lisa Thorson, a wonderful jazz singer who uses a wheelchair. So we collaborated with a filmmaker about her life. While we were producing one of Paul's plays, Kim Charlson and some of her friends came by from the Bay State Council and they said, well, we want to see this play. How can we do that? Do you have audio description? And I said, what is audio description? So a whole new world opened up to me. I was trained by Joel Snyder at a workshop at Wheelock Family Theater back in 2001. Ever since then, I've been audio describing for people who are blind and visually impaired. And I've also been captioning for theaters through the Caption Coalition. So this is live captioning in Wheelock Family Theater for the most part.
A lot of our listeners have heard the audio description in movies and things like that. How does it work when it's a live play?
Oh, that's a great question. We are very much involved with the production and the rehearsal of the play, and we use a video of the first performance for our rehearsing. We develop a script of the physical action of the play, and we write the script based on the amount of time we have between dialogue, between the lines, so that we're not stepping on the actor's lines. Before the play starts, we do what is called a pre-show to prepare the audience for what the play is, what time period it takes place in, and also we describe the sets and the costumes about 20 minutes before the play starts. Once the play starts, we talk about all the physical things that are going on during the play. I'm speaking from a sound booth in the back of the theater, speaking into a microphone, and people who want to hear me are wearing headsets and receivers so that they can hear both the play and also the audio description.
Wow, it's really brilliant, because I know I've been in a lot of live situations and I always have people that I go with that are just sitting next to me trying to describe it, and other people get distracted, all those type of things. But this is a really unique and interesting way of doing it. And of course, you're trained in this. What kind of things do you look for when doing an audio description? What type of intricacies and nuances are needed
Well, a vocabulary is very important. During the pre-show, if there is any dance in the performance, I will say what kind of dance is being performed and the specific kinds of steps and a little bit of the history of that kind of style of dance. It's also very important to get a sense of the expression of the actors. And it's a tricky thing because I don't want to superimpose my own opinion of the play or my own interpretation of the play. As much as possible, I am describing how the actors look and what they are doing and their relationships to each other on the stage. Are they walking? Are they talking to each other? Are they facing each other? Are they facing the audience? Are they talking to the audience? All these things are questions that we ask as we're preparing our scripts.
Great. So what type of plays have you described? It sounds like you've been doing it for a long period of time.
Well, it's so interesting because right before the pandemic started, exactly a year ago, Boston was going to be having 40 audio-described productions in the Boston theater community. That's not 40 performances, that's 40 productions. And each production usually has at least one or two audio-described performances. My fellow audio describers and I were going to be very, very busy. It was like the lights going off one by one when the pandemic hit and the theaters closed one by one. All of us who work in theater were just heartbroken that we weren't going to be able to perform or to provide audio description. I have done musicals, I've done dramas, I've described a circus production, opera, and ballet. It's the Nutcrackers set in Boston, so it's a very local and very accessible production, and it will be Erica, who is the choreographer, and she was also one of the stars of Urban Nutcracker. She's performed for the Dance Theater of Harlem. She's performed in dance companies all over the world. Our Place, Our Space will be running its ballet workshop based on the Urban Nutcracker from April 20th to April 23rd in the afternoons.
Very, very nice information. It's interesting that you mentioned opera because I was actually talking about this very thing the other night because I actually love opera. I love theater. I act in disabled theater. But I was thinking about opera and I was saying, how is an opera accessible to the blind? Without this service, it's hard for us to know what's going on in terms of the things that the characters are doing and things like that. But now with your service, it's more accessible.
That's right. We're very excited to be bringing this sense of empowerment to our youth who are blind and visually impaired. First, we'll be having them describe themselves in whatever way they want to and what they're wearing and where they are. Then as the dance progresses, I will be describing the movements, but they'll also be describing their own movements as well. So it's going to be a very dynamic and interactive process.
Great. Well, Cheryl, where can people sign up for this event? There is a website for Our Space, Our Place. I looked it up today. It's very nice and extensive. Can you tell the listeners where they can sign their children up for this and any of your programs that you offer?
Easy peasy. They can just send an email to president@ourspaceourplace, all squinched together.org. Or they can make a phone call to 617-459-4084. There is a cost to participate, but as I tell people, we never ever want cost to be a reason you don't participate. There's financial aid to allow anyone who wants to participate to participate.
So is the cost dependent on the class or is it a flat fee?
It's a flat fee.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cheryl and Ruth, for both of you coming on today to Blind Abilities. You both have very fascinating stories, and I'm really interested in the audio description and the work that you do, Ruth. It's very interesting. Cheryl, it's really nice to talk to you, and it's really great that you're having this program and the opportunity to foster independence and self-confidence to blind youth, because as they say, blind youth are the future of our blindness community. So thank you very much to the both of you, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you so much, Simon.
Our pleasure.
We'd like to thank Simon Bonenfant and his guests, Cheryl Cummings and Ruth Kahn, and wish them all the luck in the world with their program. And be sure to catch the upcoming Our Space, Our Place workshop based on the Urban Nutcracker to be held April 20th through 23rd in the afternoons. This event will be available on Zoom for all blind and visually impaired individuals anywhere in the world. And you can check out more information on the program at ourspaceourplace.org or send an email to president@ourspaceourplace.org. And from all of us here at Blind Abilities, through these challenging times, to you, your family, and friends, stay well, stay informed, and stay strong. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great day.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations and the realities of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blind Abilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.